Welcome to season 2 of the Bigger Than You podcast, your go-to weekly podcast that blends energetics and mindset to help you do whatever it takes to bring your vision to life whilst having fun on the way. I'm Jenna Holloway, your host and multi-award-winning intuitive hypnotherapist and mindset coach. My purpose is to help mission-led business owners and visionaries who want to inspire change by leading the way in a space that otherwise may feel unnerving and too difficult. This is Bigger Than You. Thank you so much for coming back and joining us. Today we have a fantastic guest. I'm really excited for this conversation. I have no idea where it's going to go, but Heather Poduska, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jenna. I'm really excited to be here too. We were talking off stage in the curtain back there about how what we do really complements each other and all that work around visionaries who really want to make their splash in the world and with their purpose and your piece of the mindset and really getting them in the headspace to do that. And what I do is sort of on the other end of that, I call myself a star maker because there's a cocktail of ingredients that go into superstardom. And what I mean by that is being famous in your own industry. And what I do is help people put all those pieces together with their messaging and their image and their speaking platform and the strategy and zipping it all together in one streamlined package so that it's really powerful and clear. And they have sort of an innate built-in confidence because they have all the pieces in place. Whereas a lot of people kind of piecemeal their brand. This is really creating a brand so that someone can stand out authentically, but also strategically with their expertise and that one thing that really they can put a stake in the ground around and get known for.
I love that. So the one thing that it's like an anchor in people's mind, would you say?
100%. And I call it, well, that has to do with this, your point of view and your ultimate brand core message and your platform. That is that stake in the ground. And I also believe that there can be a secondary thing, what I call a hook. Like everybody has a hook, and it can be as a business person, it can be your programs. As a thought leader, it can be your core message, but it could also be a visual thing. It could be a tagline. Like I always say at the end of everything I do, here's to hitting all your high notes, because my training is as an opera singer. So it ties into my brand as an opera singer and how terrifying it can be sometimes when you have that big high note coming at the end. So I always sign off like, here's to hitting all your high notes. Let's do it. But it can be a visual thing. It can be a physical thing. It just is that hook, that thing that people immediately associate you with. So you can have that stake in the ground around your platform, around what your belief system is, your point of view, but you can also have a hook, and a hook can be almost anything. So I kind of differentiate those two things I'm talking about it.
I love that. That's so interesting. I don't know where to start with all the questions. I have so many. Why? Why does this bring you, like, why is this your thing? I can tell you're so passionate about it. And on your Instagram page, like you pop out of my newsfeed. I always stop and watch your reels and things. But why is this your higher calling, shall we say?
Oh gosh, thank you. First of all, thank you. And I don't know why it's my higher calling. I know that, well, I'm all into human design. I like a couple of years ago, I found it and I went deep into the rabbit hole around that. And my human design is all around doing my own thing, being creative. Like my sun gate, if you're into that, is creativity. It's all about creativity. And so there's just, that's just another rabbit hole we could go down. But my background is as an opera singer, and my earliest, one of my core, I guess, I don't know, I feel like that's really like in vogue right now to talk about your core memories and creating core memories. I never heard that before this year. But one of my core memories is sitting on a street corner. I was waiting for a friend to come over and play. I was sitting on the street corner, like in front of the house, just singing and making up little songs. And I have a really distinct memory of thinking, I hope somebody walks by and hears me and discovers me. And I wanted to be like, I must have been like 5 years old. I wanted someone to see me and to hear me and to discover me and to have that talent recognized as my, my powerhouse 5-year-old singer.
That's really cool.
But I think it's a really universal desire of all human beings to be seen and to be heard and to be recognized. And I think a lot of us don't feel that way. A lot of us know it's in there. We know we have something to say. We have something to give. We may have like worked a really, really long time to develop a talent or a skill, and it's just not happening. It's just not getting out there. We're not being seen. And for me, what really like the nail in the heart for me was around my singing career, because I was a musician from the time I was 5. I was like taking piano lessons and then voice lessons, and I trained to be an operatic singer. But when I got older, I started to develop a lot of body tension, a lot of debilitating body tension around my singing. And it prevented me from having the kind of career that I wanted to have. So, I mean, and I'm really highly trained. I went to conservatory and I auditioned in New York and I went to Italy to study Italian. I've worked with breathing specialists and acting coaches, like the whole thing. But I always had this tension in my body that prevented me from really getting my sound out in an easeful way. And I think that more than anything, I mean, it's so painful. It's so painful to know that it's in there, that the thing that you have it's not in your head, you know, it's there. And in the moments when you're relaxed or you know, are in the right circumstances, it comes flooding out. And then people are like, wow, you should be a singer. You should have a great career. You should be a thought leader. You should be an author. You should be, you know, an international speaker, whatever it is that your heart desires. But you don't know how to freaking get it out of you. You don't know how to get out of your own way. And I think that's so much of the work that you do is helping people get out of their way so their voice can come out. And I think for me that's where that drive comes from, because I know how awful it feels to know that it's there, that it actually is there, and how to get that out and to get other people to hear it and see it for what it is. So I think that's really what drives me. I know that was a long answer to that question, but
no, it's fascinating. So fascinating. So it brings you joy to take somebody from the place where they have this idea, but they just cannot get themselves out there, to seeing them really like own it in their industry. What kind of people do you work with?
a lot of the people that I work with are already successful. Like they're already running businesses, but they want to take it to the next level. And they want to go from running a business to being a leader. And they already are real. I mean, I don't have to do anything to help them with their skill sets. A lot of them are already very accomplished. And what happens, either they really want to take it to the next level with their status, their visibility, their, what the fees they can command, or they just don't know how to bring it together. So I would say all of my clients have the most amazing stories. I'm like, girl, you need a movie. Like someone needs to make a movie about your life. Like they all have amazing stories, but how to bring those pieces together. So like one of my clients that I talk about a lot is she's a registered nurse, but she also went on this path of learning about cannabis. So then becoming a cannabis specialist, but then also like mindset and healing. And then life's like, how do you bring all those pieces together to create a one core message and a brand? And so that, I think those are the people that I really like working with, because I think sometimes people feel like they have to cut off their right arm to serve their left arm. And like I said at the beginning, I always think of it as like making your signature cocktail. You need all the ingredients so you don't feel like you're cutting parts of yourself off.
So you can see like the big picture and connect all the dots to make it work for them authentically showing up.
Yes. And
how much of it is like mindset and versus strategy?
That's a great question. Well, I think there are different levels of mindset. And I just wrote this in, I'm like, I'm going to say this more because I wrote this in a post recently. I think that I'm where strategy and self-expression come together. Like that is the intersection of where I think I thrive. To answer your question, I'll give you an example. When I'm working with someone privately, like if I have a one-on-one client, a lot of times I'm just listening. They're telling me their story, they're talking, and then they'll say something. And I will say, and my job is not just to listen, but to take the threads out and then make a braid, right? Like I'm listening for the connections. But they'll say something and I'll say it back to them and they'll be like, oh my God, you're so smart. You're such a genius. How did you think of this? And I'm like, dude, I didn't think of it. You just said it.
Yeah.
I went to a conference once where there was a Harvard professor. I mean, she was an author. I think she went to Harvard. She's some big shot in her industry, but her specialization was in giving and receiving feedback. And she talked about how the part of the brain that listens is not fully activated when the part of the brain is speaking is on. Like you cannot speak and listen with the same part of, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but that's what I took away from the talk.
Mm.
And I was so excited when I heard her say that, because one of the things I always say is trying to brand yourself is like trying to cut your own hair. Like
Yeah.
you can do it, but
Yeah, it's like you don't see your own blind spots. It's
exactly.
It's the part that you need support with. And
Yes.
yeah.
And I would say like the mindset piece too, and around what probably I assume what you do is that it's really hard to own something if you haven't healed it, even if it's a good thing. And sometimes the healing, and I don't call myself a healer, like that is not my genre, but I do think that healing can come through just telling your story, just verbalizing
Yeah.
and getting permission from someone outside of yourself to say, no, you actually do have that. That is yours. Let's lean into that.
Yeah.
So that part of mindset. And then I think there's another part of mindset that is more along the lines of encouragement.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you can be on the diving board and have, you've trained, you still have to jump off and you need someone to go jump.
Yeah.
So I think that there's like that, and to continue to jump, to continue to climb back up the ladder. And I think, so I sort of see those as two different levels of mindset. How about you? I don't know what you feel.
Yeah, I love everything that you're saying there, because we all desire a cheerleader, don't we? Just somebody, very well, I would say the people who don't need external validation are the ones who have done the healing, because most of us through growing up, we are conditioned to want external validation. And so, yeah, absolutely, to have that support, for somebody to be in your corner, encouraging you, cheering you on, will give you the confidence, give you the permission, like you say, for you to hold space for somebody to just listen to their stories and give back to them that this is amazing. What you have lived through and what you have to give is incredible. That's really, really powerful, because so many people just do not believe in themselves enough to get themselves out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that a lot of my clients, one of my specialties is sort of seeing like where you can go. Like someone might come and be like, oh, I think I can do this. And I'm like, no way, man, you can do that. Like much bigger. And then a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, I've thought about that. Yeah, I've kind of always wanted to do that. So it's just that permission slip of make that leap. You're comfortable where you are, and they want it, they see it, but then to actually do it is like that little push.
Yeah. What would you say, not necessarily the people you work with because they're getting your support, but generally in the industry, in the online space, let's, take, I don't know, the average online service provider, as you see it, what's their biggest struggle?
Wow. Okay. What is their big, I don't know, because everybody has their own individual. So their biggest struggle to go to the next level? Is that maybe
I guess where this question is coming from is because like I watch amazing business owners and I'm in a group coaching program, and I see the questions that people are asking, and so much of it is strategy. They want to know the right answers to a strategy. And every time, like I see it from a mile off, it's like, your question's not about strategy. There's some inner work to be done, clearly. And it's, I don't know, it's just like an alarm that goes off in my mind. Like whenever, even in like my personal life, I have conversations with people, and it's just like I have this subconscious limiting belief sensor that is really sensitive these days because, the experience that I've got. And so I just see it so obviously, and then in the online space too. And so as you're kind of looking in the online space, generally, what do you think, maybe not what their biggest struggle is, but where are people not living themselves to the fullest potential?
I would say two things. Everything in branding, everything to me, everything in success, everything boils down to messaging.
Mm.
Entrepreneurs go to business coaches for branding work. And that's like going to a stylist for singing lessons or a singing teacher for style.
Mm.
They both have a little bit of information about both, right? Like if you're a singing teacher, you know something about style because you've been in the industry, you know what it takes, but you're not a stylist. Like you know something. And in general, to get really powerful messaging, it's more than saying, who is your target audience? What do you offer? What are their pain points? What's their desire? You can go to any business coach worth their weight and go, and they will tell you the same thing. I say the same thing, right? Like that's just basic. But to get really powerful messaging, you have to go deeper than that into what you believe, into your story. Because what happens for most people, they try to niche themselves based on strategy, like what we were saying, and they get stuck because it's not really like lighting them up. And the problem is they're not making their niche powerful enough. Because when you are really in your power, all the other things fall underneath that umbrella, right? Like if you say, I am here to help women de-stress, or whatever it is, anything underneath that is just a spoke in your wheel. And connecting, and to say that you help women de-stress is really generic, right? Then you need to connect that to your story of why you want to help women distress. And I think that connection to who you are, the question that you asked me right at the very beginning, why are you doing this? That is the golden ticket to all of it. So I think that not doing the deep enough work, I would say going to a business coach and not realizing that messaging branding work is business strategy.
Mm.
Everybody thinks about marketing and funnels and offers, but that is strategy, because until you have that, your marketing is going to be weaker than it should be because it's not driven by those deeper drivers. And how are you supposed to differentiate yourself if you're not really showing up authentically with why you're doing what you're doing? And like, I call myself a star maker. It took me a long time and I still like, do I really own this? Do I really own this? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, you do. You do.
I own it because it's what I wanted. I wanted to be recognized. I wanted to be validated. I wanted to have my talent recognized. I knew I had something to give. I want to be seen. I want to be front and center. I want to share. And I'm really driven by that. And because of my whole life story, it's really connected.
Mm.
And that's what you need for that. So that's sort of on this side. The other thing I think really is a big thing that a lot of entrepreneurs miss is image. People, you have 1 millisecond to capture people's attention online. It's like scroll. And it doesn't mean that you have to be fancy. It doesn't mean you have to be dressed up all the time, but it has
to relief.
No, but it needs to have intention, right? And understanding that you are creating a brand. And the way that I always think about it for branding, your brand is like a house. And you invite people into your house in different areas, right? Like when someone first comes to your house, they drive by. So is it a pretty house? Do they have nice flowers in the yard? Is the lawn mowed? Is the door painted? Do they have a nice wreath on their door? Like, do I want to even go in this house? Right?
Are you talking about like the bio, the highlights, what the link in the bio?
No, I just mean I mean like personal image too, like all of it, just like the visual aspect of it. And I think in terms of personal image, I think that there's this movement for people to be authentic. And I am all about authenticity, but you also have to remember that packaging matters. It communicates what's inside the package. I mean, we don't just like throw toys at our children at Christmas time and say, go play. We wrap them up, we put bows on them, or if it's someone we love and they have a birthday, we we put little extra things in. It's to show that there's something in there that's important.
Yeah.
And to communicate what's in there. So first it's to grab attention, and then communicating how you want to be seen. And to take it back to the analogy of the house, once someone comes into your house, you probably take them to maybe your formal dining room, Or maybe they'll go to your living room. I don't know in England if you have different names for your rooms, but then if you know them a little bit better, maybe you bring them into your kitchen and you have like hors d'oeuvres from the counter, or you might have a beer and watch a football game or whatever. If you know them a little bit better, they might like go in your basement, in your rec room, and you play pool. They're probably not going to come into your bedroom or your attic or your bathroom, right? Unless you know them really well, like your family or your really best friends. And it's like that with your audience too. And there's a reason that you have a formal dining room, because it's the relationship. It's like they're not coming right into your most intimate spaces. So like if I've been working with someone for a year and I show up on a Zoom and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, I just came from the gym and I just took my kid to the dentist and I didn't have time to do my makeup and my hair's wet from the shower. Okay, we know each other. They're already in my circle. They understand I can deliver because I've already proven that. But if they're scrolling past my feed online and they have a millisecond to judge whether I'm professional, I have something to offer, if I'm exciting, if I whatever, it's like that.
Mm.
And so it's not that you have to be dressed up all the time. It's you have to understand what role you were playing within your brand house.
100%. And something sticks in my mind when months and months ago, I created How I Help highlight in my IG. And I remember doing a story about it to my audience, because generally when I'm on stories, if I don't do my makeup to show up on stories. Like if I don't do my makeup every day because, like I don't feel like I need. Yeah. And so I remember going on stories to say to my audience, I'm doing my makeup now because I'm going to do this sequence of stories. It's going to go in my bio, because I know that when somebody comes onto my page that's new and goes to that bio, their subconscious mind will be making judgments about me. And so I'm playing the game of making myself look more professional. And you can't see me on a podcast, but I'm doing the little quote marks. I'm looking more professional in the stereotypical way by putting on a face of makeup, because that highlight's going to be there for good. But if you show up, if you watch my stories day to day, you'll see that, I don't always wear makeup, and that's fine. So yeah, that kind of stood out in my mind, because it's just how the subconscious mind works, isn't it? Just to make, quick judgments, and we don't even realize we're doing it. It's just the way the mind works. And so, we do have to play that game.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have a lot of feelings, especially women, not just women, but I think especially women have a lot of feelings about if they have to be dressed up all the time, or if they look pretty, or if they have wrinkles, or if they need to lose weight, or blah, 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 like a lot of feelings, and that they shouldn't have to dress up. And listen, you don't have to do anything. But unless you already have all the clients and the money and prestige that you want to be strategic. And I'm so glad you said the subconscious, because it's hardwired. It's not judgments, it's biology. It's been around for millions of years. And when you went out of the cave in, caveman times, you had to judge immediately if somebody was an enemy or if they were going to be a healthy mate. It's hardwired. So you can buck against the system, or you can use the system to your advantage. So
exactly. Yeah. Love that. I want to take you back to the comment you made about you chose to call yourself a star maker. And I really love that, because you saw something in your mind and you wanted to step into that identity. And that's the way to be successful as a business owner or a visionary. You see something in your mind and you just create it. And so I called this podcast Bigger Than You, because I had this vision of who I'm going to be speaking to right at the beginning. It used to be called How to Change Your Life, and I'm creating it. And it's the way I do my business all the time. I see something in my mind. Nobody's going to show up and say, here, do you want this title? No, you have to make it for yourself. You have to claim stuff. You have to, if you want to be bold and you want to achieve big dreams, you have to be bold. And so, I called it Bigger Than You, because it's what I see in my mind. And bit by bit, so we create what we want to create.
100%. And you get to.
Exactly.
I know for Star Maker, that's a pretty big claim. And I know for me, I was like, who am I? And I'm like, well, I'm me, and I know what I'm doing. But there's this hesitation of, who am I to say that? Who am I to claim this? And I think what you said is spot on. You have to claim it before someone else is going to see you that way.
Yeah.
And you get to create what you want. And I think that you can look at if you look to the entertainment industry, people do stuff all the time like that. They change their names all the time. I'm not saying you should change your name, but you know, I don't think that Tom Cruise's name is Tom Cruise. I don't think that was his birth name, but it's cool, like, and then look who he is. He's Tom Cruise and he does all the action movies and people see him that way. And, like Lady Gaga wore the meat dress and I have to say, like, when I first saw that, I was really turned off. But the more I learned about her, I was like, oh, I get it. I get the message behind it, but she did something really intentional. So I agree with you about that for sure.
Yeah.
If you have a vision in your mind, I always say this, like, you have to have a target to shoot for. You might not make it there. You might not make the target that you're going for, but you have to know where to direct your energy. And a person with a purpose is way sexier than somebody who doesn't have a purpose, because everybody wants to feel that way. Everybody wants to feel that they've got a purpose and that they're energized by it. And that's why people follow leaders.
Yeah. It's a complete leaders energy, isn't it?
Yeah. Good and bad leaders, like they have a purpose. And so they can enroll people into their vision. And the first person you have to enroll into your vision is yourself.
100%. Yeah. So I have to ask you, because it's such a big theme on this podcast, but have you got to where you are today by doing some inner work? Has that been a key part of your journey?
Wait, how much time do we have left?
I take that as a yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, I mentioned human design at the beginning, and I'm into that now. I didn't know about it many years ago, but I'm into it now. And I've done many, 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 many years of therapy, many years of personal development, of mindset work, of just and I think entrepreneurship, especially in the coaching industry, it's really hard to be in the coaching industry and not bump up against healing opportunities through the people who are in the industry. So yeah, I think it's really important. And I think it's like the work that you do is the message that you bring is so important, because you can have the best strategy in the world. You have the best strategy in the world, but if you have some block there, it's not going to work. I mean, I know that from singing too. Like, you could have the best teacher in the whole world, but if you have stored trauma in your muscle memory, they're not going to be able to help you until you kind of address that, because your body will immediately go back to, if you feel like, I have a lot of stories about singing, but I remember I sang for a class. It was a mixed class, an orchestra and singing class. And the person who taught the class was a kind of a big shot in the music industry where I am. And this person, I got up and I was really nervous because it wasn't just singers, it was instrumentalists too. And I got up and sang, and this person said to me, "You look like a deer in the highlights. I think it's because you don't really know how to give or receive love." And I was,
wow.
Yeah. And of course, I was already nervous. I already had it was this another core memory of like, oh my God, if I get up to sing again and someone going to see past what I'm trying to do and think that I'm not lovable or that I don't know how to love people. So yeah, not good, not good. So if someone came along and said, "Oh, Heather, just keep your tongue flat when you go for whatever, don't let it bunch up." Well, if my tongue is holding on for dear life because I'm trying to protect myself, it doesn't matter if they say that to me, because it's trying to help me stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. It's probably very unintentional of the person who said that, but you just don't realize the damage that you can do to people with the words. How old were you, just out of interest?
Oh, I was probably 20.
Young enough for that to have a massive impact on.
Well, I just told the story, so it's still in my head. So it's not something that I forgot. But yeah, like definitely. But on the flip side too of those words of encouragement, you know how it is. Like, you go to your team or your mentor or your colleagues, and when you're having one of those days and you're like, "Oh my God, I'm so stuck today," and someone says, "Jenny, you're such a rock star. Oh my God, don't forget who you are. Look at all these things that you did. And you help people bust through these mindset things so that they can be world leaders. You've got this, girl." Like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
That got me past that little hump.
Yeah. Little things that people say. So it's just a nice message to just get out there. You just never know the kind words that you say, even, to just somebody that you're having a quick conversation with, like whilst buying your food or whatever. Like the power of your words to have a positive impact on how people feel and to change their day is really cool. And we never get to find out really unless they come back and tell us. But yeah, like that ripple effect of the influence that you have on others is really powerful, really positive, and really heartwarming as well. So yeah, I'm glad that you told the flip side too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think that, I mean, we all learn as we go along. One of the things that I've learned that's so important when you're working with people is how precious their stories are. And you need to be very sensitive. And I'm always humbled when people trust me with their stories, and to be empathetic and validating. And, you have to be really gentle with people because you have to be brave to be an entrepreneur and to share your message. You do. So
100%.
Like how important it is to honor that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for all of your stories and time. And it's been wonderful, Heather.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Where can people find you?
I am Heather Poduska all over. It's Poduska, Poduska, Heather Poduska. I hang out mostly on Instagram. I'm a performer at heart, so I've started dipping my toe in on TikTok because I feel like you can be a little bit wackier there. Although I have to say I'm a little bit sad now. Everybody's like, oh, now you need to do longer videos and not so much lip syncing. And I'm like, oh, that's so much fun.
You do you. I love your reels. They bring so much joy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Bigger Than You podcast with your host, Jenna Holloway. If this episode has been valuable to you, please share it with a friend or leave a review.